All right, you word nerds, get ready, because today we're going deep on a word that's probably like giving you the chills a time or two.
Oh, yeah,
Or
definitely.
the word panic.
Yeah.
You've felt it, but like, have you ever actually sat down and thought about like where it comes from?
It's one of those words, you know? You use it, but like, where'd it come from?
Exactly. And like, it turns out
Yeah.
it's got a backstory that's like way wilder than like your average Greek tragedy.
And those Greeks,
Oh, yeah.
they knew how to tell a story.
They definitely knew how to spin a yarn.
Big time.
So we're talking ancient Greece, obviously, right?
Of course.
Like home of gods and monsters and like enough drama to like fuel a whole season of reality TV.
Yeah, the original reality TV.
Right. And at the center of it all
Mm.
is our main man, Pan.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
picture this. You got goat legs,
Yeah.
a set of horns that would make like a metalhead jealous,
Sure.
and an unquenchable thirst for nymphs.
Don't forget the voice, though.
Oh, right.
This dude could make a banshee sound like a choir boy.
Yeah, we're talking ear-splitting stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So who is this party animal?
Right.
This Pan dude?
Well, even the ancient Greeks
Oh, really?
seemed a little fuzzy on the details of his, like, parentage.
Oh, wow. So even they didn't know.
Some said his dad was Hermes, the messenger god, always up for a good time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Others claimed it was Apollo, the god of, like, music and poetry.
That seems a little out of character for Apollo.
I know, right? Like, Apollo seems more like the liar and chill type.
Totally, yeah.
But the most popular version, and, like, get this, you're gonna love this,
Okay.
is that his mom was Penelope.
Wait, Penelope?
Yep, that Penelope.
Odysseus' wife.
The one who kept him waiting for like a decade while she wove that tapestry.
Wow, okay, so this is where it gets good.
Oh, this is where it gets juicy.
Okay, tell me more.
So the rumor mill, back in ancient Greece had it that while Penelope was like supposedly waiting all patiently for her hubby to like come back, she was actually getting busy with all of Odysseus's suitors.
All of them?
All of them.
Like, how is that even possible?
That's the ancient Greek question.
Talk about multitasking.
Right.
Wow.
And guess who was supposedly like a product of this, shall we say, active social life?
I can't even imagine.
Pan.
No way.
Yeah.
So Pan is like the love child of all of Odysseus's.
Now, of course, this is just like folk etymology.
Okay.
Basically the ancient equivalent of like a tabloid headline,
Right.
People just trying to explain a word's origin with a spicy story.
I mean, it makes it more interesting.
It does,
Oh.
but it does give us a little glimpse into like how the ancients saw Pan,
Okay, how's that?
this being born of, well, a multitude.
Okay, so his name in Greek literally means all.
It does.
That's got to be significant.
Oh, absolutely. The Greeks saw him as like a force of nature, connected to everything wild, untamed, and well.
A little chaotic.
A little chaos. Like
Yeah.
that friend who always seems to be at the center of every crazy party story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I know a couple of those.
We all do.
But okay, let's not just like pigeonhole our goat-legged friend is just like a love god.
Oh, no.
This dude had some like serious battle cred too.
Besides scaring nymphs into the reeds.
Besides that, yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of a big deal in the Titan War.
Wait, seriously?
Remember those giant baddies who tried to like overthrow the Olympian gods?
Uh-huh.
Well, when things were looking really bleak?
Oh, no.
It was Pan who stepped up to the plate.
Seriously. Tiny goat man against like a horde of giants.
I know, right?
Talk about an underdog story.
That's like David and Goliath, eat your heart out.
I mean, he didn't exactly rock a slingshot.
What did he do?
Pan's weapon of choice.
Okay.
His voice.
Oh, no.
He let out this ear-splitting, blood-curdling scream
Oh, my God.
that sent those titans running for the hills.
Wow, he screamed them away.
He did.
I love it.
And that is where things get really interesting for our word panic.
Okay, I am all ears. How does like a war cry
Hmm.
turn into a feeling of sheer terror? Well, the ancient Greeks believed that Pan could like literally instill this sudden, irrational fear in people.
Really?
They even had a phrase for it.
What's that?
Panicondema.
Panicondema. That sounds a bit like a spell Harry Potter would use.
Right. Basically, Pan could unleash like a wave of terror with his voice.
Like just with his voice?
Just his voice.
Oh my God.
Imagine you're just chilling in the woods,
Yeah.
minding your own business.
Yeah.
And suddenly you hear this bone-chilling scream.
Yeah, I'd be running for the hills too.
Right.
Okay, so we've got the war cry connection.
Uh-huh.
But what about his pan flute?
Yeah,
Didn't he play some like sweet tunes on that thing too?
he did.
Yeah.
But even the pan flute
Oh, great.
has a link to Pan's, shall we say, darker side.
Wait, what? How can a musical instrument be dark? It's not like it's a haunted violin or something.
Not quite haunted, but the origin story of the pan flute is pretty messed up.
All right, I'm intrigued.
It all starts with this beautiful nymph named Syrinx, who, as you can imagine, caught Pan's eye.
Of course, it wouldn't be a Greek myth without a love story gone wrong.
Right.
Did she turn him down flat?
She did. Syrinx wasn't playing Pan's games.
Good for her.
To escape him, she prayed to the river god to transform her into something else.
Let me guess, she turned into a reed.
You got it.
Pretty clever, dodging a lovesick god, Andy becoming part of the scenery.
Exactly. And Pan, heartbroken and musically inclined, decided to turn those reeds into his famous pan flute.
Talk about turning lemons into lemonade.
Right?
More like turning a heartbreak into an instrument.
It is, but you said there was a dark side to this.
Yeah.
Right? The sound of the pan flute, while beautiful, could also be quite eerie and unsettling.
Right.
It's like that saying, there's a thin line between love and hate.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, a thin line between beautiful music and creepy vibes.
So Pan's music was basically the ancient Greek equivalent of those, like, horror movie soundtracks.
Pretty much. That duality perfectly reflects Pan's nature. Capable of great joy and terrible fear, alluring music and sounds that would make your skin crawl.
Oh God, I can hear it now.
Right.
Speaking of fear, didn't Pan once challenge Apollo to a music contest?
He did.
Yeah, I feel like there's a story there, something about donkey ears.
Ah, yes. The infamous tale of King Midas and his unfortunate auditory transformation.
So what happened? Did Pan's pan flute skills just suck that badly?
No, Pan was no musical slouch.
Okay.
But come on, his opponent was Apollo.
Right.
The literal god of music.
Yeah, tough competition.
It was a classic case of hubris, that excessive pride that always seems to trip up those mythological figures.
Yeah.
So Apollo wiped the floor with Pan.
Okay, I figured.
The mountain god Tumulus was the judge. And he declared Apollo the clear winner. Everyone agreed.
Yeah.
Except for King Midas.
Oh no, Midas, you should have kept your mouth shut.
He did not. He had the audacity to say that he preferred Pan's, rustic melodies.
Oh no.
Apollo was not amused.
I bet he wasn't.
As punishment for his bad taste, he gave Midas donkey ears.
Ouch.
Right. It's a story that highlights the danger of pride and perhaps the subjectivity of taste.
But it also shows that even gods can be sore losers.
That's true.
But it's interesting how, both the story of Syrinx and the Midas incident tie back to this idea of panic.
Go on.
Like the beauty and danger of the pan flute, the way Pan's music could be both, alluring and disturbing.
Yeah.
It's almost like a metaphor for, the human experience of fear and panic.
That's a great observation. It's like how panic can sometimes make us act in totally irrational ways.
Yeah.
Just like Midas, who was so caught up in his own preferences that he ended up with donkey ears.
Talk about a fashion faux pas.
Right.
But speaking of Pan, there's that whole the great god Pan is dead thing, right?
Right.
What's the deal with that?
Ah, yes. A fascinating and rather mysterious story recounted by Plutarch.
Okay.
It's a tale that sparked countless interpretations over the centuries.
Lay it on me.
All right. So according to Plutarch, during the reign of the Roman Emperor Tiberius, a sailor named Thomas was sailing across the Ionian Sea when he heard a voice calling his name.
Spooky. A disembodied voice at sea. This is starting to sound as a ghost story.
It gets even weirder. The voice instructed Thomas to spread the news.
What news?
The great god Pan is dead.
No way Pan is dead. Did they find his goat hooves washed up on shore or something?
No, there's no mention of a body or any other, confirmation. But when Thomas reached the port of Palodes and, announced the news, he was met with groans and laments.
So people actually believed it?
Yeah.
That this powerful god was just gone?
It seems so. Yeah. And the story has been interpreted in many ways.
How so?
Some believe it symbolized the decline of paganism with the rise of Christianity.
Makes sense. The old gods dying out as a new religion takes hold.
Right. Others believe it was simply a misunderstanding.
Okay.
A case of mistaken identity, perhaps?
But those sailors heard something else and just totally misinterpreted the message.
Exactly. Or maybe it was just an elaborate prank by some mischievous nymphs.
Oh yeah, you know how those nature spirits can be.
Indeed. But regardless of its true meaning, the story of Pan's supposed death has resonated throughout history.
Really?
Becoming a symbol of change, loss, and the passing of an era.
Deep stuff. So from mighty war cries to tragic love stories to a mysterious death.
Right.
Pan has certainly left his mark on our vocabulary.
He has.
But let's not forget the star of the show, the word panic itself.
It's had quite a journey.
It's come a long way from its ancient Greek roots.
It has.
So, like, how do we go from panic on demon to, like, full-blown panic attacks?
Well, initially, panic was mainly used as an adjective to describe something related to Pan or the sudden fear he could inspire.
Like panic fear.
Exactly. But over time, it evolved into a noun.
Okay.
Representing that feeling of, like, sudden, overwhelming terror.
And it's not just about personal fear anymore, right?
No, not at all.
We talk about economic panics, moral panics, even pandemics.
Precisely. The word has broadened its scope to encompass like a wide range of situations where fear and anxiety run rampant.
And let's not forget the slang meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the 20th century, panic could actually mean something funny.
Indeed, it's a testament to the word's adaptability and how language is constantly evolving.
So from a goat-legged god's war cry to a word that describes everything, from financial meltdowns to, like, hilarious stand-up routines.
It's come a long way.
Panic has certainly come a long way.
It has.
And that brings us to a rather thought-provoking question.
What's that?
If words carry the weight of their history, what does panic tell us about ourselves and our deepest fears?
Oh, that's a good one. We're going to need a whole other episode to unpack that.
Stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get philosophical.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up.
All right, philosophy fans, welcome back. Last time we, like, explored this wild world of Pan and the origins of panic.
Yeah, it was a wild ride.
Now let's get a little existential, shall we?
Okay, I'm game.
If language is like a mirror reflecting human experience, then what does panic tell us about our relationship with fear?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it suggests that, like, this primal knee-jerk fear, it's, like, baked into the whole human experience. It's been around for centuries across cultures, and it's not going anywhere.
So are we all just a bunch of scaredy cats, like jumping at shadows and freaking out over nothing?
Not exactly. It's more like, you know, we're wired for survival.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Our ancestors were facing down saber-toothed tigers and dodging woolly mammoths.
Yeah.
That fight-or-flight response was essential for staying alive.
So panic is basically the flight part of that equation, like on overdrive.
Pretty much. But here's the thing.
What's that?
We don't live in caves anymore.
That is true.
We've got science, we've got technology, we've got Netflix.
All the good stuff.
Right. So why are we still so susceptible to panic?
Yeah.
In a world that's arguably safer than ever before?
That's a good question.
Well, our external world might be safer,
okay,
but our internal worlds, not so much.
What do you mean?
Our minds haven't quite caught up to the 21st century. You know?
Yeah, I could see that.
We're bombarded with information stimulation and anxieties that our ancestors couldn't even dream of.
Yeah. It's like the joys of the digital age, right?
Totally.
Social media, 24/7 news cycles, the pressure to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Exactly. It all adds up to this like baseline anxiety that's always simmering just below the surface.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
And when we encounter a perceived threat, boom, that anxiety can easily tip over into full-blown panic.
So it's not just about physical threats anymore.
No.
It's these abstract existential anxieties that can trigger the panic button.
Think about it. Financial ruin, social isolation, climate change, that weird noise your car's been making.
Oh, yeah.
These are the modern-day monsters lurking in our subconscious.
No wonder we're all a little on edge.
Right.
So when those fears get triggered, whether the threat is real or imagined,
doesn't matter.
Our bodies react the same way they did for our ancestors facing down a hungry predator.
Exactly. Adrenaline surges, heart races, palm sweat.
Yeah.
We go into survival mode.
And that's when the thinking part of our brains takes a vacation.
It does. We make bad decisions, overreact, or freeze up completely.
Right. It's like our brains just shut down.
It's like the amygdala, the brain's fear center, hijacks the prefrontal cortex.
Which is
responsible for logic and reason.
So we're literally not thinking straight when we're in a panic.
In a sense, yes. The amygdala is calling the shots, prioritizing survival over everything else.
So our ancient brain wiring is messing with our modern lives.
Ironic, isn't it?
It really is.
And that's why understanding the origins of panic, its connection to that primal fear response, it's so helpful.
So like if we know where the fear is coming from, we can better manage it.
Exactly. We can't eliminate fear altogether. That's just part of being human.
Right.
But by recognizing panic as a physiological response, we can start to separate the feeling from the actual threat.
So instead of like spiraling out and making things worse, we can learn to hit the pause button.
Exactly.
Take a breath, assess the situation, and maybe not run screaming for the hills.
That's the goal. That's where techniques like mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, and even just good old-fashioned deep breathing can come in handy.
So we're not slaves to our panic.
No, we're not.
We can break free from Pan's spell, so to speak.
Absolutely. We have the power to rewire our responses, to calm the amygdala down and let the prefrontal cortex do its job.
Okay, that's pretty empowering.
It is.
But there's another layer to this panic story that I find fascinating.
What's that?
The collective panic. The mass hysteria.
Oh, yeah.
What happens when fear becomes contagious?
Yes. The phenomenon where fear spreads like wildfire, turning a crowd into a frenzied mob.
It's like those scenes in disaster movies where everyone's running and screaming, trampling each other to get away.
Exactly. Or think about financial panics, where a sudden drop in the market sends everyone scrambling to sell their stocks.
Yeah.
Turning a dip into a full-blown crash.
It's like the herd mentality, but amplified by fear. Everyone loses their minds at the same time.
Precisely. And this is where that all aspect of Pan comes back into play.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, if Pan represents that primal fear that resides in each of us, then collective panic is what happens when those individual fears get amplified and become a shared experience.
Okay.
It's like everyone's inner Pan is suddenly unleashed at the same time.
So we're all connected by our capacity for fear.
In a way, yes. And that's why understanding the dynamics of collective panic is so crucial.
Yeah.
Especially in today's hyper-connected world.
Because fear can spread faster than ever thanks to the internet and social media.
Exactly. One viral tweet and everyone's stockpiling toilet paper.
It's true.
But on a more serious note,
recognizing the patterns of mass hysteria, the way fear can be manipulated and amplified,
can help us become more discerning consumers of information.
So it's not just about managing our own fear, but also about being aware of how fear can be used to control and manipulate us.
Precisely. Which brings us to an even deeper layer of the panic story.
Take me with it.
Well, if panic is a reflection of our deepest fears, then what does it tell us about the things we value most? What are we truly afraid of losing?
Okay, now we're getting into some deep philosophical waters.
We are, and that's a question we'll explore in part 3.
All right, listeners, you heard it here first.
Stay tuned, folks, because things are about to get even more thought-provoking.
All right, deep thinkers, welcome back. Last time we kind of left off staring into the abyss of our deepest fears.
Yeah, we did.
Kind of a downer, I know, but stick with me.
It's all good.
We've traced panic from its mythological roots to its modern-day manifestations.
We have.
Now we're diving into, like, the heart of the matter.
Okay.
What does our capacity for panic, actually reveal about the things we hold most dear? So it's not just about the fear itself. But what that fear tells us about our values.
Yeah, it's like panic is a backdoor into our souls.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We panic when we feel a threat to something we truly value.
Okay.
Whether that's our physical safety, our social standing, financial security, or even our sense of identity.
So the more we panic about something, the more important it is to us.
In a sense, yes. Our panic responses often highlight the things we cherish most, the things we'd fight tooth and nail to protect.
That makes sense. But why do we have to panic? Why can't we just be calm and rational about these threats?
You mean just use our words?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, remember that whole fight or flight response we talked about?
Yeah.
Panic is primal. It's instinctual.
Right.
It's not always logical or pretty, but it's designed to keep us alive.
Right.
Think of it as our inner caveman freaking out.
Yeah, our inner bodyguard overreacting to protect us from harm, even if that harm is just a bad Yelp review.
Exactly. It's like having a super sensitive security system that's constantly setting off false alarms.
But sometimes those false alarms can cause real damage. Panic doesn't always protect us. Sometimes it makes things worse.
Absolutely. And that's why understanding the nuances of panic, like the what and the why, is so crucial.
So how do we do that? How do we rewire our panic buttons to be a little less sensitive?
It's all about cultivating self-awareness.
Okay.
We need to get to know our own emotional landscapes.
Yeah.
Figure out what triggers those panic responses and develop coping mechanisms that actually work for us.
So it's about Getting to know ourselves better, figuring out what makes us tick and what sends us running for the hills.
Exactly. It's about becoming more mindful of our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations so we can spot those early warning signs of panic before it takes over.
And then instead of letting panic, hijack our brains, we can use that awareness to choose a more constructive response.
Precisely. It's about moving from reaction to action.
Okay.
From being controlled by fear to choosing how we respond to it, taking back the power, so to speak.
Okay, I'm digging this.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a lot of work.
It can be, but the payoff is huge.
Okay, how so?
Imagine a life where you're not constantly on edge, where you can face challenges with more confidence and resilience.
Okay, sign me up. But before we get too zen, there's one more aspect of panic I want to touch on.
Go for it.
We've talked about individual panic, but what about collective panic? The kind that spreads through society like a virus.
Yes, mass hysteria. When fear becomes a shared experience, it can have some seriously messed up consequences.
It's like that scene in the War of the Worlds where everyone's convinced aliens are invading.
Right.
Or, every Black Friday sale ever.
Exactly. Or think about the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
The Red Scare, or even more recent events like the panic buying during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's like fear itself becomes the enemy.
It does.
Creating chaos and division.
Precisely. And this is where understanding the origins of panic, that primal fear response, becomes even more crucial.
Because if we know how fear works, how it can be manipulated and amplified, we can be more resistant to those collective panics.
Exactly. It's about developing critical thinking skills.
Okay.
Being discerning consumers of information and recognizing when fear is being used to control or manipulate us.
So it's not just about managing our own fear, but also about recognizing when others are trying to exploit our fear for their own gain.
Precisely. And that's where the story of Pan, the mischievous, sometimes fear-inducing god, becomes a cautionary tale.
Because like Pan, there are forces in the world that thrive on chaos and fear.
Indeed. And just as the ancient Greeks sought to appease Pan, we too must be vigilant in recognizing and challenging those forces that seek to divide and control us through fear.
Wow, so this deep dive into panic has been a journey into the depths of human psychology, the evolution of language, and even the power dynamics of fear in society.
It has, and it reminds us that while fear is a powerful force, we don't have to be ruled by it. By understanding its origins, its mechanisms, and its potential for manipulation, we can cultivate a more balanced, resilient, and empowered relationship with fear itself.
Well said. So to wrap things up, what's the one takeaway you want our listeners to ponder as they navigate this wild world of words and emotions?
Pay attention to the language you use and the language used around you. Words have power. Understanding their origins, their history, their subtle nuances, it can give us a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit.
So it's not just about knowing what words mean, but also where they come from and what they reveal about our shared human experience.
Exactly. Because in the end, language is a reflection of who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. And by exploring the depths of language, we can gain a deeper understanding of the human story itself.
Mic drop. Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of language and the power of words. Until next time, keep diving deep and don't let those pan flutes freak you out too much.